So let's get started. So hi Adib. I think it's been a long time, right? So the last time I saw you, was it in Las Vegas Spring One?
Yeah, it was Las Vegas Spring One. Yeah,
Spring One, right?
yeah.
So what have you been up to?
Oh, well, the AI craze has hit my company. Everybody is doing stuff with AI, right?
Right.
So I've been like really busy doing stuff with Spring AI. It's really cool. Yeah, that's what I've been up to.
So why don't you show your app and show us the code, right?
Oh,
Whatever
yeah,
you've
you
been
want to see
playing.
what I've been working on?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
We'd love
okay.
to see what you have. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Look, I have this Spring AI app, and
You have to switch the window. Looks like
oh, yeah, I have to hit
you just
escape.
have to escape that
Yep.
one, and it will come through.
Um, so, I have this like application. And who here has heard of Spring AI? At least some of you have heard of that today. Well, Spring AI is a really great way for you to write applications that interact with AI models, be they vision models or text models or anything else. This program here gives you a sense of how simple it is to write something to talk to an AI service. I've got a REST controller. It takes a chat client builder. The chat client is one of the interfaces as part of Spring AI that I would use to talk to AI services. And I've asked it here, I created a prompt which says, write a funny song about Spring IO in Barcelona. Let's run this and see what happens. Hopefully I have no issues in my system. So we'll try HTTP 8080. And now whatever it comes back with, if you're sitting in the first row, you sing the first sentence. If you're sitting in the second row, you sing the one after that. Oh, pack your bags. Don't forget your code, right? Head to Barcelona. Hit the Spring IO road, right? With friends and fun and code to share, Spring IO in Barcelona. We'll see you there, right? Hey, this is pretty good, right? I can't write that ever. Apparently, ChatGPT can. So I mean, this is kind of what I've been experimenting with Asir, and it's kind of cool.
Tell me about Spring AI. I want to learn.
Y-
We
y-
have plenty of Azure AI services as well, but tell us about Spring
Well,
AI.
like the thing about Spring AI is that it offers a consistent way to interact with anything. So in this case here, this program is using the OpenAI ChatGPT 4.0 model in order to generate the song. But I have a huge problem, Asir. My company doesn't let me use OpenAI because they're very concerned about like security and data privacy and stuff like that. But like the way it works is all I had to do was add a dependency here called the Spring AI OpenAI Spring Boot Starter, and then I went to my application YAML and I plugged in my API key that I got from OpenAI, and based on that, I told it I wanted to use GPT 4.0, and it just worked.
This works.
Yeah, except that I'm not allowed to use it.
You're not allowed to use it.
No, my company bosses are like, nope, it's the internet, it's AI, it's scary, it's privacy, it's like all that type of stuff.
Cool. So is that all? Are you able to run it anywhere? Or?
Oh, don't get me started on I'm new to Azure, like we're moving to Azure right now, but I also find Kubernetes really hard to use and it's really complicated for me. I'm trying to avoid it. Me and my team just want to write code. We don't want to deal with YAMLs. And also too, we recently had a mini security incident in our company. Somebody left a clear text password in a configuration file, and now there's like tools and scanners and review processes that are like, you shall not have any API keys anywhere. This is why I am very securely storing it in an environment variable on my laptop in clear text in my bash RC file. But they don't know about that. Don't tell the bosses. But I would not be able to do this in production. Like they would just say, no way. I have no idea how to solve that.
Cool. Okay. So why don't we take a look at the problems that you just talked about, right? I think you were looking at. Can we switch to the tech, right? So there are 4 challenges you just identified, right? You wanna
Yeah, I can.
boom? You identified 4 challenges. One is you're new to Azure, right?
Yeah.
But you want to get productive very quickly. Second one is you want to avoid Kubernetes complexity. Third one is you need to access OpenAI models privately so that it's a little more secure for you, and you're worried about the clear text credentials as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's step through one at a time. Let's start with the AI piece first, right? So Azure has the OpenAI service. It provides the REST API access to OpenAI's powerful language models.
Hold on, hold on. I just make sure I got this right. You mean I have my own GPT running there?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. How much of the world's energy do we consume? Oh,
Lot, I guess. So you get access to all these models, including GPT-4, GPT-4 Turbo, all the models listed there, right? Many of them are generally available for you. The DALI is also available there. It's a series of models that can generate original images from natural languages. Whisper is also available that can transcribe and translate speech to text. Now, these models, they can be easily adapted to whatever you are doing specifically for your app, and it's not limited to things like content generation, summarization, understanding, semantic. You can. It's very powerful and flexible. You can also use these through SDKs, Java SDKs there. That's where Spring AI also comes into play. Python is also available. There is also OpenAI Studio. You can access this through Spring AI just like the way you were doing it, right? Now, at the center of that is your data, right? At the previous slide. At the center is your data in your ecosystem, where developers and customers can bring their own data from a variety of sources, right? It can be from local files, URLs. You can keep it in Azure Blob Storage or SQL databases, Redis Cache, Elastic, you name it. You can keep it many of these places, right? Now, they are integrated comprehensively so that your capability allows you to centralize the data, making it accessible and easier to manage, right? Once your data is integrated, you can infuse your intelligence into your applications using the trained models from Azure OpenAI that we just talked about. Now, whether you are using structured data from SQL or unstructured from all the sources that we talked about, Azure OpenAI enables you to get the powerful AI models, derive the insights and the functionality to your applications. Right? This unified way, you can create and infuse intelligence into your applications. You saw Adib build using Spring AI, right? Now, one of the concern he had about is the security, privately using it, right? So this is where we should talk a bit more about how Azure uses OpenAI as well. So it's critical for us to address the topic of data and emphasize that your data is your data. Very important, right? You can have full confidence when you're using Azure OpenAI service. When you use the service, your prompts, your completion, including the outputs, your embeddings, and your training data, they're all securely managed and protected. Specifically, your data is not available to other customers and is not accessible to OpenAI as well. Additionally, your data is not used to improve OpenAI models, or it's not used by Microsoft or any third-party products or services. Importantly, right, the data is not utilized for automatically improving Azure OpenAI models unless you explicitly choose to fine-tune models with your training data. In that case, your fine-tuned data are available exclusively for your use. The Azure OpenAI is fully controlled by Microsoft, and it's running inside the Azure environment. It ensures that the service does not interact with any services operated by OpenAI, such as ChatGPT or OpenAI API. This way you get the robust privacy and security controls so that we can meet exactly what you were talking about. So do you want to create something?
Yeah,
like
I want to see this. Like, enough of slides. I
Yes,
want to actually
exactly.
do this. Okay, so what am I supposed to do? You got to walk me through
Just
this.
go to the portal, Azure, open the Azure portal,
Uh-huh.
and search for OpenAI. You're
Okay.
going to see OpenAI show up.
Okay, all right. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it looks like somebody in my company already created this
It's
Spring
not
IO.
showing up. You have to swap.
Oh, yeah, I have to swap, don't I? I keep forgetting that
You have to
PowerPoint
escape,
is
yeah.
taking over
Yeah.
over the screen. Okay, cool. So we'll rewind, and I type.
OpenAI.
Okay, so this is kind of like I have a SQL database or a Postgres database. I put my data in it.
Mhm.
Microsoft can't see my data there, and it's private database for me. Looks like somebody in my company has already created this Spring IO Azure OpenAI, or maybe I click
Right.
on that one.
Yeah. Go to model deployments.
Okay.
It's on the left.
Okay, model
And
deployments.
You
Okay.
can try to deploy your own model.
Okay, well, let's see if I can do that. This is my own personal private
It's
chat
your
GPT.
own private.
It's
yeah.
just going to tell me jokes all day. That's it. That's all I want from it. All applications require a few jokes added to the log file. Okay, so I see here there's a create button. Oh, I can't resist hitting a create button of some kind. Okay, great. Models. Okay, what do I have? Oh, look at that. There's a lot of stuff. This is the same stuff I'm using with the OpenAI
Wow.
libraries, but now I get
Yeah.
it privately. Okay,
It's
great.
private. Yeah.
Okay, well, this sounds kind of turbo sounds good. I want that one. And okay, yeah, we'll let it update the model whenever there's new versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give it a name. I'm very lazy. I'm just going to copy and paste the name here. And I hit create. Okay, can it be this easy?
It's very easy. You got it, right? So now you can open up your code and swap to your private
Okay,
data.
okay, so hold on. So I just deployed my own AI model. I
Correct.
think I can sell this to my boss. I can go explain.
Exactly.
This is just like a database we have in the cloud, and it's got our data in it. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so now all I need to do then to use this is
Mhm.
I need to switch my Spring AI application to use it, but Spring AI supports everything, so
Wow.
I should be able to do that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember back here on the previous page, what did I see? I saw something with some API keys and things like this. The bane of my existence, API keys, you know? Makes the security people very unhappy. Oh, see. Oh no, this is the wrong one. Hold on. It was I think here, and then this one. Keys and endpoints. Okay, cool. So it looks like there is a key here,
Yeah.
and some API endpoint. Let me take it and in the fashion of not having to type on stage, I'm just going to cut and paste it in here. So okay, so this is now how I configure a switch from just plain old OpenAI on the internet to the Azure one. I pointed at my application where I have my private deployment, so it's not like an OpenAI, it's Spring IO, Azure, OpenAI, blah blah blah. I put my key. Oh man, my key is still in my bash RC file, and I want the GPT-4o deployment. So what do I still need to do things with Spring AI? Well, I need to change my dependency. I remember.
Correct. That's an important one.
So instead of Spring AI-OpenAI, it's Spring AI-Azure OpenAI.
Wow, that's simple.
Yeah. Refresh my Maven
Mm-hmm.
and stop the application. And then run the application. And then you're all going to sing, right? If it works. What if it gives an exception? Will you sing the exception? So we'll try HTTP 8080 and we'll see. We'll see if the privately deployed GPT-4o has more humor in it than the public one. Oh, so here's to Spring IO in the Spanish sun. We're coding and fun blend into one, right? Barcelona, we'll be back real soon for another Spring IO beneath the techie moon, right? Okay, this one has more humor than the other one. I think it does. So just to kind of review what just happened here, I was able to write a very simple application with Spring AI by having the Spring AI auto configuration, and then that allowed me to inject chat builder, which I was able to prompt for any interaction with the AI. And this will work with all the models. Doesn't matter which model provider you're using.
So just you swap the the dependency plus you put in the config, right?
Yeah.
What happened to that API key?
Yeah. Don't get me going about the API key, because the problem with the API key is I'm not allowed to go to production like this, and life is very complicated. Is there anything you can do for me to make it so that I don't have to deal with this API key business?
Yeah, so this is where we have Key Vault. So if you want to switch to that one, yeah.
But hold on a second. You're telling me to put my key in a key vault?
Yeah?
But where do I put the key to access the key in the key vault? Like I've had this problem before, like I have a key vault, and then there's a password I need to get into this key vault, and then where do I put that password?
Yeah. So there's a tiny bit of magic there. But before we get into the magic, so Key Vault, whenever a developer starts, they start with putting the keys right in the code to start with. That's really dangerous. Sometimes it ends up in the code repository. And then what they do is they try to put it in the environment variables so that every environment you can customize it. Now, all you have done is you have shifted the security challenge from the code repository into the execution environment. Right? Both are challenging at that point. So this is where you have to secure. Now, you have to secure whether it's the law mandates it or just to protect your own data. You have to secure it. So this is where we have the concept of Key Vault. Key Vault is a safe place to save all your secrets, your keys, and certificates as well. And they can be loaded into the memory space by the application. So this is where your question of, okay, don't I have to then provide credentials to access the Key Vault? So in the cloud, when a machine is created, each machine gets an identity, right? Just like the way all of us have names, whether you get baptized or another ceremony to get you the name, right? Here, every machine gets an identity. So without using any of these keys to access it or passwords to access it, what you can do is you can grant access to that identity. Right? And then when the machine comes up, when it accesses Key Vault, it gets authenticated and then authorized based on your authorization. Then it can have access to the Key Vault, right? So if you look at this picture here, the service at the top uses environment variables to store the data, whereas the one in the bottom does not use those passwords and things like that. It uses the managed identity to connect it, right? Now, the Key Vault is very, very popular in the sense you can have hardware encryption as well as software encryption. It's completely RBAC control. So if you don't like the control today, you can just change it tomorrow and cut off the access. And the third important point is it also tracks who's accessing them. So in case something goes wrong, you can always go back and check who actually loaded the secrets, right? So why don't we play this with your application?
Oh, you want me to do this?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
let me see.
let's do it, yeah.
Oh, I remember how to do this. I think I saw it somewhere else. Okay, so everybody raise your hand if you have the problem, this secret 0, chicken and egg, how do I get to the key? Okay, who's not using a Key Vault? Okay, who would like to be using a Key Vault? Everybody, right? Everybody has this problem. Okay, so this is always the bane of my existence in every project, because what do people do? They have weird configurations that are different between different environments. And so what I'm going to do here next is
You have to switch the escape.
Escape again. All right. I will someday remember to do that. So one of the things that you can do in Spring, who knows Spring property source? Environment variable? Yeah? And you know the externalization rules of Spring, the Spring Boot, all the 17 rules that you use to look for different things. So one of the things that we can use, we can actually use that to our advantage. And the way we use that to our advantage is like this. So what we do is in our application YAML, we can leverage the Spring Cloud module for Azure. And you can see here, Cloud, Azure, Key Vault, Secret, Property Sources, Endpoint. So you can point at the key vault that has all of your keys in it. And then all you need to do to access them is just go dollar, boom, in the name of the key in the key vault. That's it. Now, the magic little bit here is managed identity enabled equals to true. This actually tells the Spring application that when it's launching and it wants to connect to Key Vault, it actually uses the identity that was assigned to it when the application was created. And that identity was never part of your configuration settings. It is not part of your, it's not checked in to get anywhere. It's not in any environment variable. It's kind of a bit of magic that happens through the Spring Cloud for Azure library when it calls out to its environment to discover what's in there, figures out who it is, goes to Key Vault and says, hello, I am the Spring Azure Fun application. Can you please let me in? I would like to access the value of the Azure AI key. Does this make sense to folks? Okay. Now this magic works with other cloud providers and on-prem too, because it depends on which version of Spring Cloud you're using. So you can do this with other Spring Cloud variants. Okay. Any questions so far about this?
How does it work with debug mode?
What do you mean by debug mode?
When I'm debugging locally, can I use the same mechanism or will it only work?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So the answer is, it depends on whether you have a machine configured like mine or not. So if I run with this right now on my laptop, what's going to happen? The answer is it depends if my laptop is joined into the Active Directory domain. And if it is, like in a typical corporate laptop, it will work if your vault has been configured to allow your logged in identity to access it. If, like my machine, it's not part of that Active Directory, I will still have to, for local development, kind of rely on this approach here, where I just have an environment variable with my setting in it, as opposed to this is what I would use when I deploy to production.
I also want to add by saying that when you are running, it's you have an identity with the same Active Directory, right? So you can use that to authenticate for local deployment runs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Let me show you a little bit of what this looks like. It's actually surprisingly easy to do. And the first time I did it, I was I think it took me about an hour and a half because I was like reading documentation to figure out how to do this. But effectively, you create a vault, and you can create as many vaults as you want. And so when you click on the vault, I click here on secrets. You can see here I have that secret, the Azure AI key. So I created this name here. It has to match the property name over here. That's the only thing I had to do, right? Now, you can set the values on it, but how do you actually solve this problem of who's allowed to access? So if you click on the access control, one of the things that you're going to see are the role assignments. Let's wait for it to retrieve it. And so one of the, you can see individuals here, like Nevin, for example, has access to this if he's logged in. So if your machine is logged in and it like you logged in with a Windows machine or however way you do that on Mac, there's a way to do it too, then it will work. But more importantly, when I go through here, you're going to see that I have an actual application here that's been configured. So I have an application called Apps Spring Azure Fun, and this application, using its identity, is able to access this place. It's literally almost like you have a badge with your photo on it, and you walk into an office and people go like, badge matches office, I trust the badge, I let you in. Or you have a passport and they let you into a country by checking the passport when you get to the customs. Does that answer the question?
Imagine that each machine born in the cloud has a machine identity, and he's using the machine identity to grant them access. So when it comes alive, it authenticates, gets authorized, and then it loads a secret. If you haven't granted the access, it wouldn't be able to fully controlled by you.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's basically how you solve this problem of identity. So how can you work offline? With great difficulty, because in this case, my models are running on Azure, so offline, so long as you have connection to wherever you're going, right? Now, you can work though through like with network isolation. You can do that. So you could have like firewalls and stuff. So only if you're on a VPN in the company office can you get to these models and vaults and all this type of stuff.
Is there a way to add full value for dev profile?
So the question is, how do I do profiles, like Spring profiles in this type of environment, right? Yeah.
You can.
Yeah. So you can totally do that. You can add just profiles here and then have different configurations. In fact, I originally planned to do it like this, but it was easier for demo purposes to cut and paste rather than having multiple profiles with activate on Kubernetes, don't activate, that kind of stuff. And then the vaults actually, I think, are free. So you can make a vault for dev and a vault for prod, and that's what you would want to do. Then you have the same key names everywhere, but you have different vaults that you're targeting. Yeah.
So I think we're going to deploy this in the cloud, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about.
Yeah, like this is the part where I really just find Kubernetes to be way too much YAML. I have a t-shirt that says Enterprise YAML Architect on it. It has an error message on the back. I only wear it when I go to KubeCon. Elsewhere, I do not wear this Enterprise YAML Architect t-shirt.
Let's skip to the.
Okay, so you're going to show me like how I can deploy apps without actually.
Yeah, I want to introduce something and then we'll talk a little bit. Yeah. So when you're deploying apps, right, at the center you are seeing Azure Spring Apps. It's a platform as a service. It's built, managed by Microsoft and VMware and Broadcom. It's an easy way to deploy and scale Spring applications. Imagine that they are running in that box. Your apps can talk with any of the Azure services or any of the backing services that's sitting on your prem or you're running your own. Right? And you can also access the app's logs and metrics using any of the monitoring system, whether you're using Dynatrace, Elastic, or Splunk, whatever you want, you can use it. You can also, we just talked about machine identity. You can manage machine level access or user level access using Microsoft Entra ID, which is the new name for Active Directory. You can also automate end-to-end using any tools and platform of your choice. You can see Jenkins there, GitHub there, Azure DevOps, or any, whether you're using GitLab, you can use any of them, platform tools of your choice. And if you're a developer, you can continue to use, whether you're using IntelliJ, Eclipse, VS Code, Maven, Gradle, all of them can be used. Now, it's an easy way to deploy here. Now, let's zoom in a little bit into what is there inside it, right? You would see that the service itself is built using Kubernetes.
Oh, did you say Kubernetes? Do I have to know anything about it?
You don't have to know anything about it.
Oh, good. Okay. You're still my friend.
Yeah. It's very important. Your apps are running on the left side, and the runtime is on the right-hand side. Now, very important that you don't have to worry about any of those. You just deploy those applications, right? That is the pretty important one. Now, to get started, today you're going to play with this, right? It's actually pretty easy to get started. It's only 3 steps to get started. You create the service, which you probably created once in a lifetime of the service. And then you create an app, that's again once in a lifetime of an app. The most important thing is you'll keep on deploying it. Deploy.
Okay.
So why don't we try this for the application
sure.
that you were playing with?
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
I think I'm only going to do 2 steps though, because I've already created the service.
Okay.
So let me just open up here my little helper README file, and maybe I can
You
show.
have to escape it.
Oh gosh, yes I do, don't I?
Yeah.
I will remember that before the end of the presentation. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So we go here, and so in my demo environment, I have Spring IO ASA, and I've already deployed stuff. So essentially what you're telling me is that there is a service in Azure that is dedicated for running Spring applications.
That's true, yeah.
I thought you guys were like a .NET company.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. Okay,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
do. Clearly, you do more than
You
.NET.
can
Okay,
deploy
all right.
any application on
Okay,
Azure.
so-
Java is one of the
Okay,
critical
so
things.
there's a dedicated Spring service,
Yes.
and I can deploy my apps to it. Okay, and I
Right.
can do it easily. Okay, great. So let's go through the process of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do here is just to save myself typing, I'm going to set up some environment variables, and what I do is first I have to create an application, and this application already exists. Okay, we'll try it because I tested this before. So we'll call this demo app 2. Let's see if I have enough coda. All right, and we will run this command. Oh, I don't need to list it. That was a mistake. Okay, we'll do create. So what I'm doing here is I ask it to create an application. I tell it which resource group it's in, the name of the service, I'd like a URL for it, how much CPU and memory I'd like my app to have, the name of the application. And what happens now is that it goes and it checks that there's enough capacity in those underlying Kubernetes clusters that you cannot see. Notice I'm not using kubectl, and make sure that they not only have enough capacity, but if they need to be scaled up, it scales them up. If there's too much capacity in them, it scales them down. So it truly is serverless, because I don't know where the server is. No idea. Not what part of the world it is, not what track, not what its IP address is, none of that. What version of Kubernetes, I don't know any of that. It's all hidden away from me, which is exactly what I want, because I just want to focus on code. Okay, so it's created the app. So what do I do next? Next, I need to tell it, hey, my application, let's run this command, is going to present itself to Key Vault, and it's going to want to read something. Can you please allow it? This is what this connection bit here does. So it says, I would like this for this service in this resource group to have a connection to Key Vault. For this particular application, it's a Spring Boot application that's actually doing the connecting, and this is the vault that it's going to connect to. Please use the identity of the application on the system in order to allow this to happen. Is that making sense?
This is the one that authorizes behind the scene to access it.
Yeah. And then earlier I forgot to mention here where I basically says system identity assigned true, which is saying my application will have an identity assigned to it when it gets created, as opposed to the application having to have somebody manage its identity somewhere with a service account of some kind.
Would that also work with an AKS
Yes.
response?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This idea of system identity is throughout all of Azure.
So if somebody is able to deploy an evil application, he has access to the root keyboard.
Sorry, say that.
Say
No.
If somebody
No.
is able to deploy an evil application to my namespace, he has probably the same rights that my application has.
Okay, that's a great question. So the question is, if somebody deploys an evil app, will they have rights? The answer is no, because when you are looking at the Key Vault, it's per app. The access control rules are per application, not your app is there. If you run the bind command, to create it, if we go here to access control, role assignments, I should see here now my new app in the list. Right, we got, yeah, see, I got a third app that just showed up here. I had two before. This is demo app 2, right? So demo app 2 can read the stuff that's in the vault, and you can further restrict it to which keys and which sections, and if you wanted to. Does that answer your question?
If it is a lower level abstraction like containers in the Kubernetes, then you're going to assign at the pod level, not
Right,
the
so-
namespace level.
So let's take this one here and
He has a question.
Would it work the same way with Azure OpenShift?
Similar, yes. Any compute, it'll work. Every machine born in the cloud has a machine identity. You can declare access and authenticate, authorize based on that particular access level.
So let's go back here to my README. All right, so what I'm going to do now is just build my application. and then after I build my application, I've created it, so I'm going to do a deploy. What I want you to notice about this is I'm just giving it my jar file. Here I didn't have to write a Docker file. Yay. I don't have to write Kubernetes YAML. Double yay.
Nothing, yeah, you don't have to do any of
So what's going to happen is it's going to upload my jar file to Azure Spring Apps. Azure Spring Apps is then going to run build packs on it. Who here has used Spring Boot build image? Maven W Spring Boot build image? Okay, how about Grail W Spring Boot build image? It does exactly the same thing, but it does it centrally. So there's this open source technology called Cloud Native Build Packs. It's part of Cloud Native Computing Foundation. It was originally created by a partnership between Pivotal, Heroku, and others. That is what is powering this thing. It knows how to containerize your Spring application, your Node.js app, your Python app, your C# app, your PHP app. Doesn't matter. It works with everything. And it means that you don't have to know how to create an optimal container image. So this typically takes it a little bit of time because it needs to upload and run the containerization process. So while it's doing that, I'm going to show you what happens when it's actually done. So we'll go to over here. I have two apps that I ran earlier. This is the Spring Azure Fun version of it. You'll notice that my application here has a URL. So if I take this URL and we'll open up and see if it actually is going to give us the third attempt at a funny song. So HTTP. All right, who's going to sing it? Come on, I need somebody from the audience to try it. Now, if I told you I had a bottle of maple syrup in my backpack and I would give it to you, would you do it?
Oh, the song is out?
Yeah, the song is Spring IO in Barcelona, where the sun shines bright and the tapas are great. A goner, okay. We'll code all day and laugh all night in the city where the code is always right. There you go.
It's always right. I love this.
So this is basically the flow. Just to kind of step back on, like, we promised you to talk about some of the hard parts of working with Spring applications, especially in the context of security where you're deploying stuff, or things like privacy of data and stuff like that. So we showed you how you can create and deploy your own models. We showed you how Spring AI really, like every other part of Spring, gives you that portability. And then we just saw how we can do passwordless connections. Now, it's important to say that, Asir, does this work for databases too?
Yeah, for databases too. In the case of databases, if the databases are running on Azure, we have the concept of passwordless connections, just like the way the app was connecting to Key Vault without any password. The same mechanism works for any database that runs on Azure.
Hold on, did I get this right? Like, I don't actually need to put the password in the Key Vault, then pull it from the Key Vault, then use it to connect to the database?
No, not at all. You just declare this machine identity can access MySQL.
Oh, okay.
It can access Cosmos DB. It can access SQL database.
Can you do anything other than databases too?
You can do it with Service Bus too. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so I can send messages. I can probably.
Yeah, I think where we focus on is the data, cache, messaging. These are the three key services that we focus, and they're also working on the Azure OpenAI.
Okay,
as well.
hold on. I gotta. We're kind of running out of time here, and there's the most important question I have about cloud. Can I do batch workloads on cloud? So I showed you all this stuff, but like really, we have all these batch jobs. We have all these Spring Cloud config, Spring Cloud Gateway, all of this type of stuff. Can this thing do any of that?
Sure. We can go into it. So you are using a simple application here.
Yeah.
So we should switch to a little bit.
Something a little bit more complicated? Okay, well, my laptop is too simple for complicated, so
let me.
I think you should maybe show us the complicated stuff from your machine.
Okay, let me do that. Let me connect that. Oh, I have to move it here, looks like.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I understood that the models are deployed on AWS infrastructure, right? So the Spring Boot application is not going through internet to OpenAI.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? It was hard to hear you.
Okay, I will try to speak louder. So I understood that the GPT models are available on the Azure infrastructure. The request won't go through internet to OpenAI. What about the GPTs? If I create a GPT on OpenAI, will that be available on your infrastructure also?
I think I'm not 100% understanding the question.
He's asking if he's creating a model in OpenAI, will that be accessible through Azure?
Yeah,
I
something
think
like
you
that.
will have to create it in Azure. Everything that you do in OpenAI is available here, right? You can do it here, and once you create it here, it's all private. It's only accessible to
Yeah,
you.
it's single tenant basically.
I can maybe I give you an example. Maybe it's better to understand what I'm asking. So on OpenAI, on the web interface, I create a GPT. There I can upload 2 or 3 PDF files. I just upload them, and then I can ask questions against those files. While on Spring Boot, by using Spring AI, I saw your presentation from August from Las Vegas. I have used that, and in order to achieve the same functionality, I had to write Java code, which was loading those files, and then I was able to ask questions against that information. And I was thinking, okay, if I just create a GPT on OpenAI just by uploading few files without writing any piece of code, I was wondering if that GPT, once it is created on OpenAI, if it's available on your infrastructure also.
Well, you can reach it over the internet, but
Okay.
that is like whatever you do is on OpenAI is just how OpenAI does it. Whatever we showed you is private to your organization and subscription. It's completely separate deployment. It's almost like, think about it as you set up your own Kubernetes cluster in your subscription, and that's what you're accessing. But I'll take it. I'd prefer to take this offline. We can continue the conversation. I want to make sure we get through this next section. If
Thank
you
you.
don't mind. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to introduce a little more complicated app, and then we talk about how we can continuously infuse the intelligence into the apps itself.
I want to see batch jobs.
Batch jobs. That's what
Yes.
we're going to go.
I want batch jobs on the cloud.
In this model, right, it's like a common LOB. The apps are being accessed through a gateway, the backend apps, and the backend apps are talking to database. The database access is stored in Key Vault, automated, monitored, all of those things. And the apps are connected to Azure OpenAI, right? I'm just going to show you this app up and running. So I need to escape. That's the protocol here. And here is where I am running it. You can see this is the app. You would see the apps are being deployed. All the apps that you saw there, they're all deployed here. And I'm just going to access it. The way I would access it, I would, let me maximize this. I would click on this and it will access it. Now what I've done is I have already created it, so it's right here, right? This is where the app shows up, and I can ask questions here, right? So one of the questions I'm going to ask here is, because we are running out of time, I'm going to go straight into the thing. So I have a question that I framed here, which is, I'm going to ask this question of what is this bike, right? And see. So if I place this, the first thing it'll tell me, I'm actually interacting with a assistant here, which is just tied like the way Adib was talking about, but except that it has a user interface. So your customers are interacting with a store, right? Asking questions. So I'm going to ask this question. I think it'll say it doesn't know because it does not know.
So,
Right.
so you mean you asked the question about a product that hasn't been loaded into the product catalog yet?
It's not there in the catalog.
Yes,
actually.
batch job.
Correct. This is where I don't have that particular product is not here, right? So if I search for fast, right, it's only in the
Okay.
assistant. It's not
Okay.
in the catalog, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to add the product. The way I add the product is I have a small command. It will actually add the product. So I'm going to go here, PWD, I'm in the right directory, and it will add the job. So the product is being added at this point. So I'm going to go into this guy, and I'm going to now refresh this page. So you would see the product has been added, and it should be at the bottom.
But what was the batch job written in?
Um,
Perl?
The batch job is actually written using Spring Batch.
Oh, good. That makes me happy.
Spring
So-
Batch, right? I just deployed it. It's pretty easy to deploy. You just like the way he was deploying AZ Spring App. Let me show you that one slide I have, how to deploy the actual code. It's as simple as he was explaining, right? You create a job, you deploy the job, and you start. It'll work, right? So now that I've added the product, I'm going to manually trigger the job. You can schedule all of those things, but I'm manually going to trigger the job. So the way I'm going to do that is I need to escape this. This is what I have to do. Escape, and go to this, and I'm going to start the job. This is my job. Alright. So I go to the terminal, and I run the job. Let me clear it up, otherwise clear. So I started the job, right? The job is going to run now. Yep, it is running. It's going to run. It takes about 10 or 15 seconds to run, right? So this might be a good time to, oh, it started the job, right? So now I have to check if it ran or not. That's an important thing. So I'm going to say, ask, show me the execution. So I ran 4 times this morning, so it should show the 5th time. 5th time is running. It's in the pending mode. You can see it in the bottom. That's the one that just got started, right? Once it runs, it's running now.
All right. So essentially, this makes me happy. I can run batch jobs
Yeah.
written in Spring Batch
Very simple.
on
Just
the
like
cloud
the way you did your app.
without writing any YAML and becoming a Kubernetes YAML architect. Sweet.
Exactly.
And those batch jobs are like feeding the AI system, which is even
Okay,
great.
the job is completed. You can see it, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take this question one more time, right? And go here, and I'm going to ask the question. All right, let's see what it does. There you go.
So this is
It knows.
Yeah.
Right. So what we have shown you is you can infuse intelligence, and you can also keep your apps intelligent. Right. You can do this periodically, however you want to schedule. There are many ways to do it, and we just showed you one of the key ways.
Yep. So just kind of wrap us up, because we're at time here. We're happy to stay and take as many questions as you have. Is a few kind of really important points. Number one is, if you're doing AI in this year, Spring AI is awesome for that. 2 is, when you start doing AI, you're going to discover very quickly that it's really about boring software engineering things you've always done in Spring. It's literally going to be like, I have to ingest a bunch of documents, I need to run embeddings on them, aka I might need a batch job, or I might need a real-time event stream, all the things you're used to doing with Spring Cloud Stream, Spring integration, all this type of stuff. Security is on top of mind for everybody, and so getting rid of passwords is 2024. There's no reason for you to be using passwords anywhere with your system, so leveraging things like managed identity is a good thing. And then, the pain and suffering of Kubernetes YAML is optional. If you want to suffer it, go for it. If you don't want to, there are plenty of ways of running your Spring applications with no need for any knowledge of Kubernetes or containers or low-level infrastructure stuff. I know I want to learn more AI and less infrastructure.
So everything we talked about today, you can start right away, right? If you scan that, it'll take you to a page that will walk you through. And the other thing what we did, Adib and I did, is we put whatever source code we used today, they are all available in these 2 GitHub repos, right? So you can access all of these and have plenty of fun.
Okay.
So take this. Both of us are on Twitter as well as LinkedIn, so you can always catch us anytime.
Okay. And then if you click on the Spring Azure Fund, I forgot to include it here, but I ran a workshop on Wednesday for Spring AI. It was a full day workshop with about 33 people in that workshop. And all of the code from that is on my GitHub page. So if you go to that, you'll find it pinned on there. Saikali on GitHub. Has lots of samples, teaches you everything you need to know. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.